Imagine a city built on water, not a small town, a metropolis. 200,000 people, pyramids rising above floating gardens, markets selling everything from live jaguars to golden jewelry, fresh water carried by aqueducts from distant springs, streets so clean, so organized, so extraordinary that the first Europeans who saw it wrote home, saying they thought they were dreaming. That city was Tenochtitlan, capital of the Aztec Empire. In 1519, Spanish soldiers arrived and saw it. In 1521, they destroyed it. This is the story of one of the greatest civilizations in human history. How it rose from nothing, how it reached impossible heights, and how it was erased in 2 years by steel, cunning, and an enemy no army could fight. The WNDRS, the Aztecs, did not start as conquerors. They started as nobodies. According to their own sacred histories, they came from a mythical homeland called Aztlan, somewhere in northern Mexico. For generations they wandered, unwanted, driven away by every powerful tribe they encountered. They were servants, mercenaries, the lowest people in the complex social world of pre-Columbian central Mexico, but they carried a prophecy. Their god, Huitzilopochtli, the hummingbird of the south, god of war and the sun, had given them a sign to look for. An eagle sitting on a cactus, eating a snake. That was the place. That was where they would build their city. That was where they would become great. Around 1325 A.D., on a small swampy island in the middle of Lake Texcoco in the Valley of Mexico, they found it. An eagle on a cactus, eating a snake. That image is on the Mexican flag today. Building the Antio Cesibla. The island was not promising. Swampy, small, surrounded by the shallow lake. The powerful kingdoms around them looked at these newcomers and saw nothing threatening. They were wrong. The Aztecs developed chinampas, floating gardens. They drove wooden stakes into the lakebed, wove branches between them, piled mud and vegetation on top. Artificial islands of extraordinary fertility, capable of producing multiple harvests per year. They drained sections of the lake, built causeways to the mainland, built an aqueduct carrying fresh water from mainland springs, built a dike controlling flooding, and built temples, first small, then enormous. No metal tools, no wheels, no horses, just human intelligence, human organization, and 2 centuries of relentless labor. By 1519, Tenochtitlan was one of the 5 largest cities in the world. The empire of the Azuan, the Aztecs who called themselves the Mexica, built their empire through alliance. In 1428, they joined with 2 neighboring city-states to form the Triple Alliance. Together, they overthrew their overlords. And together, they conquered. Over 90 years, the Triple Alliance extended control across most of central Mexico, from the Gulf Coast to the Pacific. Hundreds of city-states brought under Aztec dominance. The system was built on tribute. Every conquered state paid gold, cacao, feathers, cloth, jade, food, and human sacrifices. The wealth flowed into Tenochtitlan in rivers. The market of Tlatelolco, adjacent to the capital, was the largest in the Americas. A Spanish soldier described it as larger and more orderly than any market in Spain. At its peak, the Aztec Empire was the most powerful civilization in the Western Hemisphere. The world of blood and stars to understand the Aztecs. You must understand their religion. They believed they were living in the 5th sun, the 5th age of the world. The 4 previous suns had each ended in catastrophe. The current sun had been created when the gods sacrificed themselves at Teotihuacan, and it required blood to keep moving. Without human sacrifice, they believed the sun would stop. The sky would fall. The world would end in darkness. This was not superstition. This was their physics, their cosmology. their understanding of how the universe worked. The great Templo Maya rose at the heart of Tenochtitlan, rebuilt and enlarged by each successive emperor, growing taller with every generation. At its dedication ceremonies, captives taken in, war were sacrificed by the thousands. The Aztecs also practiced flower wars, ritualized battles with neighboring states, fought specifically to capture prisoners for sacrifice. States like Tlaxcala had been locked in this grim ritual with the Aztecs for generations. Those same Tlaxcalans would help destroy the empire they had fought for so long. The stranger from the East, Hernan Cortes, landed on the Mexican coast in February 1519. He was 34 years old. His expedition had been officially canceled. He had sailed anyway, in open defiance of his commander. He had with him 500 soldiers, 16 horses, and a woman who would change everything. She was a Nahua-speaking woman given to Cortes as a slave. She learned Spanish. She became his interpreter, his advisor, his bridge between two worlds. The Spanish called her Marina. History knows her as La Malinche, and has never agreed on whether she was a traitor or a survivor. Through her, Cortes learned the crucial secret. The Aztec Empire was not loved. It was resented. The tribute, the sacrifices, the constant wars. The conquered peoples were waiting for someone to give them a reason. Cortes gave them that reason. The alliance that changed. The Tlaxcalans attacked Cortes when he approached their borders. He survived. Then he negotiated. The alliance he formed with Tlaxcala transformed a force of 500 into an army of thousands, then tens of thousands. City-state after city-state joined, not because they loved the Spanish, but because they hated the Aztecs more. This is the part of the story that the simple version always leaves out. Cortes did not conquer the Aztec Empire with 500 Spaniards. He conquered it because the Aztec Empire had made too many enemies, and those enemies had been waiting for exactly this moment. Meanwhile, the Aztec Emperor Montezuma II was paralyzed by uncertainty. Strange omens had been troubling him for years. Earthquakes, a comet, a temple struck by lightning. And now these pale strangers with fire weapons and animals no one had ever seen. Horses, which terrified Aztec warriors who had never encountered them. Were they gods? Was this the return of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god who had sailed east and promised to return? Montezuma could not decide, and that indecision cost him his empire. He invited Cortes into Tenochtitlan, the Golden Sea, November 8, 1519. Cortes and his forces entered Tenochtitlan across the Great Southern Causeway. Montezuma came to meet them in person, carried on a golden litter, shaded by a canopy of feathers, surrounded by nobles who swept the ground before him. The two men met, exchanged gifts, exchanged formal speeches through interpreters. Within days, Cortes took Montezuma hostage. For months, the impossible situation continued. The Aztec Empire functioned. Montezuma issued commands, but he issued them under Spanish guard, and everyone knew it. The tension finally broke when Cortes left the city to deal with a rival Spanish force on the coast. His lieutenant Alvarado, left in command, panicked during a major Aztec festival and ordered a massacre of unarmed nobles gathered to dance in the sacred precinct. Tenochtitlan erupted in fury. The night of Soaradabo, Ruiz Cortes rushed back to find his forces besieged inside the palace. Montezuma tried to calm his people from the walls. His own people threw stones at him. He died days later, whether from his wounds or killed by the Spanish remains, disputed to this day. On the night of June 30th, 1520, La Noche Triste, the night of sorrows, Cortes attempted to escape across the western causeway in darkness. Aztecs discovered them. Warriors in canoes attacked from the water. The bridges had been removed. Spanish soldiers weighed down by gold. They refused to drop, fell into the lake, and drowned. 2/3 of Cortes's Spanish forces died that night. Cortes sat on the road outside the city and wept. Then he started planning his return. The invisible Callao, while Cortes regrouped, gathered more allies, and built a fleet of small boats to control the lake. Something else was already working for him. Smallpox. The indigenous population of the Americas had no immunity to European diseases. Smallpox moved through Tenochtitlan with catastrophic speed. It killed tens of thousands. It killed Cuitlahuac, Montezuma's successor, the brilliant commander who had driven the Spanish out within 80 days of his taking power. When Cortes launched his siege in May 1521, he faced a city already devastated by plague. The new Emperor Cuauhtémoc fought with extraordinary courage, defending every street, every building, every bridge for 75 days. On August 13, 1521, Cuauhtémoc was captured trying to escape by canoe across the lake. The city was in ruins. The canals ran red. The greatest city in the Western Hemisphere was destroyed. The Aztec Empire was over. What they left. Cortes built Mexico City on the ruins of Tenochtitlan. The Templo Mayor was torn down. A cathedral was built with its stones. The lake was drained over the following centuries. But the Aztec people did not disappear. 6 million people in Mexico today identify as indigenous Nahua, direct descendants of the Aztecs. Their language, Nahuatl, is spoken by over 1.5 million people, and the foods the Aztecs cultivated now feed the entire planet. Chocolate, tomatoes, avocados, chili peppers, vanilla, corn in its dozens of varieties. Every time you eat guacamole or drink hot chocolate, you are tasting the legacy of a civilization that Europeans tried to erase 500 years ago. The eagle and the cactus and the snake still fly above Mexico. The wanderers who found their sign in a lake found their way, against all probability, into permanent history.